Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the cottage kitchen at the Elliott Homestead. Today we're going to talk about the reality of cooking in a homestead kitchen. Those of you who have been with us here in our little kitchen for the 8 years since we've lived in this cottage know that our kitchen has gone through quite a few configurations, quite a few different demos. We were doing the work ourselves as time and money allowed, which means it took us a while to get it right. Maybe we're not perfectly there yet, but we've made a lot of strides. And I wanted to share some tips that I have found for actually having a kitchen that you actually cook in, especially when maybe you're producing some of this food yourself. Maybe you've got a garden that you're pulling in produce from, or you're learning to cook from scratch. Those sorts of kitchens are really set up and operate quite a bit differently than modern kitchens, so I thought I'd share some of my best tips that I've learned about actually cooking in a homestead kitchen with you. Okay, my first tip for cooking in a homestead kitchen is to have a plan. Because the thing is, when you start cutting out processed foods and you start cutting out prepackaged things and seed oils, you are going to end up with nothing that you can cook really fast. You're only going to have ingredients. There's a lot that can be thrown together quickly. We've done some fast food videos here on the channel that you can check out. There's a lot of great stuff going for a homestead kitchen, but just popping something in the microwave is not an option, which means that you gotta have a plan in place. So I have a blackboard in my kitchen and I use a white chalkboard marker on it. And every single week I write out the plan for the entire week. This takes me about 30 minutes. It's not my most favorite task that I do here, but it's really helpful because I'll write out our calendar events for the week, any filming or workshops that we have going on. I'll write out recipes that I'm trialing, ingredients that I need to get from the grocery store, and I actually plan out breakfast and lunch and dinner. And I do this because I try to be really efficient in the way that I cook from scratch. So here's how this kind of looks in real time. On Sunday, I might make a double batch of lentil soup that we can reheat for lunch on Monday. So I kind of try to plan according to the week so that I know what I need to do. Cooking from scratch means that sometimes you need to think 8 or 12 or 24 hours ahead. So having a plan for the week, just 1 week at a time, makes that really efficient and makes it possible to remember what you need to do.
Kamikoto is offering Elliott Homestead viewers an extra $50 off with any purchase using discount code Elliott50. Visit kamikoto.com/Elliott Homestead to get that discount. These individually inspected, lifetime guaranteed knives made out of Japanese steel will be delivered to you in a beautiful ashwood storage box after having gone through a 19-step process that takes years to complete. These are the knives that I have used in my kitchen. I still use them. I love them. They're forged by master craftsmen, and the result is shockingly sharp knives that really keep their edge well. They're easy to clean, they fit perfectly in your hand, and they're made to last a lifetime. Michelin star chefs around the world use these knives. Regardless of what knife you'll use the most in the kitchen, I would recommend getting started with one of their knife collections. It's a great way to get stocked up. There's a link right below the video to Kamikoto where you can visit, browse the knives, and use code Elliott50 for a one-time $50 discount.
So once you have a plan, the next step that I have found to be the most helpful is to have the ingredients as close to the kitchen as possible. Many of you know we have a big root cellar beneath our kitchen, and that's where we store our winter stores and our bulk storage of things like salts and sugars and potatoes and carrots and kimchi and all kinds of wonderful things. But I also need to have some of that up here. I still end up walking down to the root cellar quite a few times today, but having the ingredients on hand means I'm more likely to cook with them when I can see them. So a few months back, I created what I call my harvest table in my kitchen. This is a little table just repurposed from somewhere else in the house. It holds my cookbooks, it holds our silverware and my pasta pot, and then the top of it holds whatever sort of ingredients I'm cooking with seasonally. So right now I've got onions and garlic, lemons, apples, parsley, horseradish, and a few other herbs. I could easily put, and I should put, bowls of sweet potatoes, bowls of potatoes, bring up some more onions from the root cellar because that's what we're eating right now. In the summertime, this is tomatoes and watermelon and squash and basil and all kinds of beautiful things. But the point is, if it's out, I'm more likely to cook with it. So this means that about every 48 hours, I need to just turn my eyes to the table, make sure everything is out, make sure everything is stocked up. for what I need for the next coming days. It looks really beautiful. It kind of helps you to appreciate the seasonal produce that you have because it's never the same 2 days in a row. And, most effectively, have it out so that you can cook with it. So you got to have a plan and you got to have what you need on hand and have it out so that you're prepared to actually cook with it. After that, I have found it very helpful to create a space in your kitchen that you actually want to be, and most importantly, that others want to be in. Because when you're in your kitchen, you're more inclined to just do kind of the tasks that you have in front of you. Let me give you an example. We put a little wood-burning fireplace in our kitchen. We had a corner that we could have used for storage, but we sacrificed it for 2 kind of cushy lounge chairs and a fireplace. What this means is that often before supper this time of year, I'll start a fire and people will come in. They'll hang out and they'll have a glass of wine. Stu will often sit here and sketch or just talk to me while I'm preparing dinner. And so when people are in my kitchen, I'm more inclined to stay in my kitchen. So it's not this huge task that separates me from the rest of the family, but instead it's kind of this space where people want to come. And I'll tell you, sometimes that's frustrating when you want to just be left alone and you want to cook dinner or you want to clean or whatever it is. But the reality is if my people are here, then I want to be here. So this is going to look different for your kitchen. But creating a space where people want to be and where you want to be is really valuable. So if that means, when I was nursing all my babies in this kitchen, I put a big old cushy couch in here and it took up a ton of room and it didn't really make sense. But that meant that I could just kind of hang out in the kitchen with everybody while I was nursing the babies. So that worked best for us. Because when I'm, starting bagels for the next day, or I'm soaking oatmeal for the next breakfast, or even just doing a good job cleaning up all the dishes at night, I am more inclined to stay if other people are in here with me. Okay, my next tip is to try to have the things that you'll use the most within 5 steps. This is really tricky because it's, again, going to be based totally on how your kitchen is set up. But in terms of efficiency, you can run yourself absolutely ragged when you're cooking everything from scratch. If you've got to run to this pantry to get this, and then you've got to run over here to get this, and run out to the garage to get this, you'll just literally waste all of your energy. And so I've tried to position everything that I use the most within 5 feet of where I stand the most. So I stand at this cabinet right behind me. Underneath it is my little under-the-counter refrigerator. So that has a lot of essentials. Over to my left, I've got my wooden spoons and all of my kitchen utensils. Got my pots and pans here up on the wall. And then just a few steps that way, I've got all of my pantry items and my dishes as well. Over to this side, I've got my harvest table and my silverware. So if I'm basically standing directly right where I'm sitting right now, I've got 5 feet on either side that has mostly everything I need to prepare a meal. So that means that I don't have to do a ton of moving around because you've already done a ton of moving around, haven't you? Even just by gardening and getting this produce in your kitchen, or even just gathering up all the ingredients. When you're cooking from scratch, shopping can be a full-time job as you sort of get your meat from here and your milk from here and your produce from here. You've already put a ton of work in. So setting up your kitchen in a way where you don't have to move around too much can be really helpful. Also, I have a 1-step rule for my absolute essentials. Again, picture me standing right behind where I'm sitting right now. Do you see this little thing on my counter? That's salt, butter, and olive oil. Those are non-negotiables. And so those are within arm's reach. I don't even have to move at all to reach those. All right, this can be a tough one to swallow because all of us are bound by budgets. But I do think it's really crucial if you're going to be running a from-scratch homestead style kitchen that it's well stocked. So sometimes this means saving up so that you can buy the sugar or salt that you need, having the flours that you need on hand, having all the pantry items so that you don't have to guess if you've got it or if you don't. Again, this is probably another video for another time on really how to stock those essentials well. But when I actually get down to the nitty-gritty of making breakfast and lunch and dinner and breakfast and lunch and dinner on repeat, I've just got to have what I need. So I got to make sure that I'm well stocked. I do this with a huge grocery order every month and then sort of supplemental ones throughout the month if the menu changes or if I find I've run out of something. But beyond even just groceries, think about how you actually use your kitchen and what you use in your kitchen. So I had these really beautiful clay ceramic bowls that I really enjoyed, but they were heavy and they were always chipping and they didn't stack in the cupboard. And so last year I finally decided, why don't I just purchase some glass bowls? They stack really nicely. I can put them in the dishwasher. They're really light to carry around, and it's really made a big difference. I also bought a new vegetable peeler, which I don't think I've done since college. And that's been really nice because it just works so much better. So look at actually how you use your kitchen and then have what you need. If you don't have, for example, a bowl to proof your doughs in, or you don't have the amount of plates that you need, or you don't have enough silverware, or you don't have a measuring cup, which I finally just bought, it's just going to create these little friction points in your day as you're just trying to get food on the table. So maybe keep a little pen and paper in your kitchen for a while and take note of where you feel those little tension points and just think, whenever I need a measuring cup, I just can't find one. Maybe you need to have 2 sets of measuring cups, or I don't have a bowl big enough to do this thing I do all the time. Maybe you need a bigger bowl. So if you're going to run a Homestead, whole food, from scratch kitchen, you have to have what you need. That's going to look different for you than it does for me, but take note so that you can make sure you've got what you need. Okay, next one. You got to have a compost bucket, right? So many of us are growing our own food and we want to recycle all the kitchen scraps. When you are cooking from scratch, you end up with a lot of waste, organic waste. Potato peelings, carrot tops, chicken bones, whatever. There's just a lot. Even something like making tomato passata, eventually you're going to get down to the point where there's just a little bit of waste from your seeds and your stems and such. And I just have a little metal bucket that I keep in here, scrape all my stuff into it throughout the day so that none of that has to go into the trash, which keeps it from leaking and keeps it from smelling. I usually put it outside, right outside my kitchen door, which is not ideal. But since we've got a new puppy, we've been having to prop the compost bucket up into the tree so that he doesn't get into it. So every time I need to do dishes, I just go grab it, or I'm going to prep food. I go grab the compost bucket, bring it in, and just have something immediately to put all that organic waste into. And then that gets fed to our chickens or gets composted in our big compost pile. My point is, if you're cooking from scratch, you are going to have a lot of organic matter to deal with, even if it's just your coffee grounds. So have some sort of system in your kitchen for dealing with that, because it'll get really dirty really quickly if you don't. Next up is to try your hardest. I feel like I went through an entire season of having little babies and renovating this kitchen and doing all the things where I didn't do a good job of this. But I'm really trying to take care of the pieces in my kitchen that I have now, to take care of them well. So my copper, for example, it gets polished with Barkeeper's Friend every few months. I am careful to use my copper in the proper way so that the tin stays really nice on the inside, using wooden spoons, for example, instead of metal utensils. I've got a gorgeous set of made-in stainless steel pans underneath my stove. And I am really good about polishing those up as well with Barkeeper's Friend, which I just love. It keeps things looking really nice. My cast iron gets a little bit of oil on it and gets wiped down before it gets put away. The wooden spoons get treated with a beeswax probably twice a year. The knives, the Kamikoto knives that line our wall, those get sharpened so that they stay nice and sharp and in good shape. So things in here are cared for. And if they can't be cared for, then I need to not have them in here, because this is a working kitchen and I want each piece to work and I want each piece to be valuable. And I don't want to have to replace them because it's expensive to stock and build your kitchen from scratch. You've invested a ton of time into your ingredients and into your space. And I want those things to last. So if that means oiling my table, or mopping my floors, or wiping down my baseboards, or just making sure things are stacked appropriately so that they're safe and they're not going to get knocked over and broken, take care, as good of care as you possibly can, of your things so that they last. I'm not sure why this next one took me such a long time, but having a bread box when you run and cook out of a Homestead kitchen is really helpful. I've said before that one of the downsides of cooking from scratch and growing your own food and having this style of kitchen is you don't get any pretty packaging because everything you've kind of done yourself. And so breads, for example, they don't come in beautiful little pastry bags or even plastic bags. You've got to find a way to store all of this stuff in a way that looks nice. So I have my sugars and spices, for example, in really beautiful glass jars that I've collected over the years because that looks nicer than having them in a dusty old plastic Ziploc from my root cellar. But I recycled an old metal box that I now use as our bread box. So whether I make scones, bagels, sandwich bread, donuts, whatever it is, if there's any leftovers, those get put into the bread box. So it's up, it's safe, there's not kind of constantly crumbs and food around on my countertops, which can happen a lot when you cook from scratch. People know if they're looking for a bread-ish item, they can go to the bread box. So it just keeps it nice and organized and safe because it's lined with a little towel on the inside. It's closed, so things aren't going to get stale. They're not going to get hard. And it's a very simple way to kind of put all of that homemade goodness into one place. Okay, I've only got 2 more for you. I have lived many, many years without a dishwasher. And that's a lot of dishes. When you're cooking from scratch and you're washing vegetables in your sink and you're prepping vegetables for homemade salsas or whatever, you guys, it's so many dishes. And I know not everyone can have a dishwasher. Like I said, we did many, many years without one, but we finally got a replacement for our broken one this year, and it is so nice. I probably would have put in 2 if I could. It's just saved me a lot of time on actually cooking food. So I was finding that I wasn't making things because I didn't want to have to do all the dishes. And this way I can just run loads kind of all day long. I probably run 2 loads a day, and it actually uses a lot less water than me standing at the sink and hand washing everything. So if you can, get a dishwasher because your time is really well spent cooking and preparing food. And to me, that's a better way to spend my time than it is washing all the dishes. Okay, my very last tip for you, and just in terms of efficiency and reality of cooking in a homestead kitchen, is to clean it. You have to clean it all the time, especially in the summertime and the wintertime and the spring and the fall, because you're always bringing in dirty things. In the summertime, it's big crates of veg from the garden that need to be cleaned and prepped and cooked and preserved and whatever it is. In the wintertime, it's dirty old potatoes or onion skins or garlic skins and these kind of just like dirty, dusty foods, and you're washing off jars and cooking up lots of meat. The floor is always dirty. It's forever going to be dirty. So I do something that I call putting the kitchen to bed. And this means that every night, if I can help it, if it's within my power to do so, I put the whole thing to bed, top to bottom. That means garbage taken out, dishwasher run, hand wash dishes on the counter, put away, counters wiped off, stove wiped off, putting out a new wash rag and hand towel for the next day so that those are nice and clean, pushing chairs in, cleaning off the floor. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to keep an actually used kitchen clean. So don't feel like you're doing something wrong. That's just kind of part of the gig. So even though my kids and family are great at helping me, I'm kind of the last man out of the kitchen after doing my final sweep through and just making sure that it's in a really good place for the next day. Because guess what? Tomorrow, we got to do it all again. So these are some of my most helpful things that I've learned over the years. Many years of cooking from scratch, many years of growing our own food and putting up our own food and kind of having to deal with the recklessness that creates in the kitchen. But I hope they're helpful to you. And if you have other tips that you have found helpful in your from scratch kitchen, put them in the comments because I'm sure others would like to learn from you. As always, if you enjoyed this video, will you share it and make sure you're subscribed to the channel? That really helps us and we really appreciate it. And of course, don't forget, if you would like to join me in my kitchen for a 3-hour Zoom cooking class, you can see our new lineup of January, February, and March workshops that we're going to be running out of the kitchen. And there's a link to those workshops right below the video.